Well, hello, everyone. We'll just start. Don't want to break the flow. My name is Annie. I'm a volunteer here at HUSECON. I'll be introducing Chris. So our presenter for today is Chris Sistrunk. Chris is a technical leader in the ICS OT space at Mandiant. Okay. Mandiant's ICS OT consulting practice, focusing on the cyber security for ICS and critical infrastructure. And he's going to be presenting on the proactive approach to OT incident response.
Thank you so much. All right. Hopefully everybody's got a good lunch and is ready to fall asleep. I'm just joking. Glad to have you here. I see some familiar faces, and hopefully you'll get something out of this talk. So, a little bit about me. I am an engineer by trade. I went to school at Louisiana Tech, electrical engineering, worked for Entergy, power utility that serves the Woodlands just north of here, Beaumont. That's where I started my career in distribution engineering, and then got into the SCADA world, and then fell backwards into cybersecurity when Stuxnet happened, and it really took a lot of my time and research when I wasn't doing substation, transmission and distribution, SCADA support. I was researching cybersecurity, and I've been at Mandiant. They gave me an offer I couldn't refuse, so I left, and my boss is like, go, you got to go. And I've been at Mandiant almost 10 years. It's kind of crazy that journey has been. I'm going to talk about the similarities of IR in IT and OT. There's a lot of similarities. The process is still the same. But we're going to also talk about some unique considerations for incident response in OT environments, mainly around like safety and process. And sometimes you can't just deploy an agent in an older system. So but you still can follow the same incident response process. And then we'll talk about proactive steps that you can do, things like playbooks, incident response plans, tabletops, and knowing your systems. So this, if you're in incident response, the NIST SB 861, that's familiar. The same steps for any incident response. Or if you have the book, Kevin Mandia and Matt Pepe wrote Incident Response and Computer Forensics. These two resources is really the basis for any incident response, no matter what it is, even OT. And what we can do is, if you have time, these are two really great resources. If you're new to incident response, it really shows how we deal with an incident all the way from the triage steps to detection and analysis, containment and eradication, recovery, and then that after action report. But we're going to talk a lot about the preparation phase in this talk. A couple of years ago, we wrote a blog about our philosophy and all of the different responses we've done in OT environments. And we saw a repeating factor, the theory of 99. Most threat activity occurs in IT systems like Windows and Linux, even if it's in the OT system, like a Windows HMI. The attackers compromise those IT systems in OT environments. 99% of the malware is IT malware focused, like Windows or Linux based. And then 99 of the forensics opportunities is going to be performed on those Windows and Linux systems. 99% of detection opportunities, 99% of the intrusion dwell time when an attacker's in your network, 99% of their time is going to be on those systems that they're normally compromising on a regular basis. That 1%, that's the sexy one that all of the news articles want to write about, is in the embedded devices. So we have, part of the blog we talk about enterprise, the MITRE enterprise attack framework, which is really fantastic, and that really applies here too. They also have the ICS attack, which talks about OT language specific things in the process environment around embedded devices. So I know you might have heard some other talks talk about embedded IoT, all of those things that are not Windows and Linux, that's not covered by the MITRE Enterprise Attack Framework. So we have this funnel of opportunity. Let's see if this has a, I don't know if it has a laser pointer. I'm not sure if it does. Okay, well, I'm going to assume it doesn't. Well, we'll see here as the Purdue model, just an example of a network. You have the internet at the top, where you see the gray triangle, inverted triangle, is where attackers would be, their attacker presence. And as you go down layers in a network, for like a power company or water, wastewater, or even manufacturing, there's going to be lots and lots of those Windows and Linux servers. And even if you get down into the the OT world, you have data historian or the engineering workstation. There's still Windows and Linux servers in those environments. So it only when you get down to what we call level 1 or level 0, that's where you're going to have very little opportunity for attackers to use their normal tools, techniques, and procedures, right, when they do attacks. Because there's less amount of Windows and Linux. So we have common TTPs. We've done a comparison. This is an eye chart for probably most of you, but it's on the blog and you can read it. We did a comparison between Triton, or also some folks call it Trisis, Indestroyer or Crash Override, a Fin 6 retail credit card theft, and Fin 11 ransomware deployment and extortion. So in all 4 cases, the malware was Windows executable malware. The protocols that the attackers used was HTTP, remote desktop, SMB, SSH. That's no different than any other IT incident. And then the tools like Mimikatz, Nmap, NetExec, sysinternals, you name it. A lot of the same things that you can't, just by looking at this list, you can't tell if it's an IT or an OT incident. And lastly, Meterpreter, remote desktop access, dual home systems. It's a lot of very similar things. Beacon. We find all of these in IT and OT incidents. So let's talk about some of the differences. So there's some unique considerations in OT for incident response. The first one is environmental health and safety, right? You're dealing with dangerous processes, and they already have their own process for like disaster recovery and incident response, like incident command structure when there's a fire on an oil rig in the Gulf, right? Or if there's a pipe break at the water utility, they have a defined disaster recovery incident response process, okay? So if a cyber compromise on those physical systems, you're going to have to kind of integrate that incident response, because if you don't, there's going to be 2 factions trying to rule the roost. You have the plant manager, if it's a manufacturing plant, and then you're going to have the CISO trying to fight what the responsibilities are. So we really need to have a coordinated effort here, and involving your environmental health and safety, having a safety discussion before we do any network investigation in, say, a really dangerous part of like a lead smelter. You know, you can't just take someone from the IT department and walk them into that room without safety training, in other words. The next one is operations and engineering. You have to have, they're usually the first responders, because that's their job, keeping the plant or the power system, anything running. They do this troubleshooting on a normal, everyday basis. The thing that we do for incident response for cyber events, we have to really take advantage of their knowledge because they're doing this on a daily basis. So there you have, and like these custom tools, like if it's ABB or Siemens, there's no incident response software that the IT team can use. You have to use that OT software because that's the only tools that the vendors have pretty much given us to do the analysis. So you really have to have that operation and engineering support. And then third-party support. This one is one of the most critical ones. And any of the OT incidents that we've had, even if it's a commodity malware in an OT environment, so like WannaCry, we still had to have the vendor of that system, maybe it's Emerson or Siemens, they would have to come in and help the SMEs on site to deal with the cleanup because of the really unique considerations there. During Triton, when we went to the Middle East to do the incident response for that, we didn't have we didn't bring a Triconics system with us. We partnered with Schneider Electric and used their lab because that's the best place to do it. They have all the tools there. They have all the development tools. For instance, I know a lot of systems run VxWorks, real-time operating system. I called Wind River, and this is not a dig on Wind River at all. I just called them and say, give me a quote for the software development toolkit for VxWorks. And they said, oh, it's $120,000. Like to do memory analysis on VxWorks is $120,000. But guess who's paid for that already? The vendors have paid for it. So your Schneider Electric, your Siemens, your ABB, they've already had to do that because they build those systems. So we really have to have that partnership to help during an investigation, even if it's troubleshooting. A lot of times, when I was at the power company, I had to troubleshoot an error that I couldn't resolve. I had to get on the phone with that team that developed that system and go through and dump logs, send it to them, get the troubleshooting help back from the vendor. So it really is important to have that third-party support included in your cyber incident response, like your agreement, your MSAs. Have a cybersecurity response component in your agreements. We wrote a blog about this as part of that preparation phase for IR, and we talk about the OT device and tool identification is really important because of the unique tools and software that each of the engineers use on a regular basis. The IT SOC or the IT IR team at your company, they don't know what those softwares are. So it's really good for them to understand what tools are really necessary. And then also collaboration with the vendors, and then data identification and collection. So I'll give an example. Asset management. Asset management means that you know what you have. And a lot of times the security team doesn't have the asset inventory that the OT team has, at least at the SOC level. Some of them may be the electric sector, they may, and some nuclear sector, they may. But for by and large, most of the companies that have SOCs don't have a full asset inventory in their platform to tell which devices are OT. So those IR plans and playbooks really depend on having that correct tools for that investigation. And same way with the network architecture. The subnets within a power plant or manufacturing line, you may have 5 different lines that do the same thing, that have the same IP addresses. They just copied the same thing. They're not interconnected. So which 192.168.0.1 are you talking about? All right, you have to look at the MAC address, or you look and another thing is like the beige boxes. Like if you go to a control environment, you see all these beige windows or refrigerator size cabinets. They all look alike. They're numbered similarly. So are you on the third floor? and go to that cabinet and go to that switch. They're all identical switches. They're all identical systems. And it's really confusing during an incident response if you don't have that asset management and the network architecture with labeled, updated network diagrams. Vulnerability and patch management is also helpful, especially for critical Windows and Linux vulnerabilities like we've seen. Anytime there's a major one come out, like Eternal Blue, that like when you say we have 45 Windows HMIs in our system that are vulnerable to Eternal Blue, like your upper management CISO at least is going to ask about that. They're not going to care about the PLCs that were 20 years old and have vulnerabilities that you can't patch. They're going to care about the things that are exposed in that cone of vulnerability, that funnel of opportunity for an attacker to use. Spreadsheet of doom. It's Friday the 13th, right? How many people have, you talk asset inventory, and it's really, some engineer has this gigantic, incomplete spreadsheet. We do this not because it's easy, because we thought it would be easy, right? When we do assessments for customers, they'll send us their spreadsheet of doom, and it's some are great, some are very sad. And then there's some times where they're disparate systems. There might be a screenshot of a Xerox copy of what was updated 10 years ago. That's not machine readable. Like, you can't search that during an incident response. You have to like manually go through all this, a picture, a non-readable PDF. Maybe we can use AI to help fix all that. And I don't know what all these logos are. Maybe I should have talked to Sam about it. Well, we have the crows. So they have this crows theme in some of their slides. And so I was like, dad joke time. But going back to the first dad joke is, an optimist says that it's, January 2nd. No, sorry. I completely messed up the joke. You knew the joke, though. You were laughing at it, so I just told the punchline and everybody laughs. No, it's, I'll skip that dad joke, sorry. I'm flustered now. So the other one is related to crows. Is your asset inventory person counting crows? Or are you like the black crows, a thorn in my pride with doing asset inventory? No excuse for an out-of-date, incomplete, unreadable asset inventory. There's plenty of free and paid asset inventory tools out there. Make it machine readable. That's the thing. When we do incident response, we get things that are not machine readable. That's the ultimate thing there. If you were in the talk earlier with Tom about the NetRise and the bill of materials and the vulnerabilities, most ICS protocols are insecure by design, so they're not going to show up in a CVE scan. They don't have authentication and encryption. You probably know this, and they don't have CVEs assigned to them and usually flagged and not flagged in vulnerability scans. So we have Modbus and KNX protocols. So Modbus, if you didn't know, it does have a whole CVE for the whole protocol. So that's may not mean anything to people, but it's like, hey, you got this sexy exploit we fixed in the PLC. We still have Modbus, so I can do whatever I want. Developing capabilities for incident response in OT is good. It's good for a couple reasons, not just for, oh no, cyber. It's also good for root cause analysis, troubleshooting, visibility, fixing problems that you didn't know existed until you looked at the traffic in the network, right? So operational improvements. So collecting this data, network security monitoring, I've given trillions of talks about network security monitoring and OT. So go watch those or read what I've written about that. It's really important. Threat hunting, some people want to do threat hunting before they get the visibility. It's no point in that. So you can't run before you can crawl, right? So you have to be able to get that visibility before threat hunting. And if you have response capabilities, if you don't have any logs, you can't threat hunt, and you don't have any visibility. So it's like threat hunting and IR are just not possible without that visibility. Right tools for the job. Software for OT is weird. There's a lot of weird things that's different. And why did the vendors write it this way? They're getting better, but they're just different in the way that they might have been kludged together. But that's what we have to deal with. A $25 million installation of a control system is not going to look like regular IT software. So you have to be able to take the engineering teams that manage that and use those configure tools, the troubleshooting tools, and also have a contact with the factory engineers that write that software to really help during an incident. It has to be purpose built. Unique considerations like these proprietary protocols, non-standard pinouts, like in cables. When I used to work at Entergy, I had a bag of serial cables with all the different things. We had like 4 or 5 different proprietary cable pinouts. They weren't just, you couldn't go to Radio Shack and just buy a null modem cable. It wouldn't work. They had to have a custom pinout. And so knowing that before you go on site, like, oh, I brought the wrong cable, then that's going to delay you doing the incident response. So make a cheat sheet of what you have. Same with the system parameters, looking at CPU usage, memory usage, scan times, the latency on the network. You can do that. Engineers troubleshoot this every day with problems. And you can log into a PLC and look at the CPU usage, the memory usage, the PIDs. So here's an example from the blog. We have the vendor, General Electric, Schneider Electric, Siemens, what the asset is, what software, SG-config, DS Agile Studio, or the D20M shell for a D20MX substation RTU, and you have to use a serial and an Ethernet cable to talk to it. You can actually dump memory out of that VxWorks-based RTU, but you have to do it serially. And we actually wrote a tool for that and presented on it at Black Hat 2016. The reason why they did that is they didn't want people dumping memory over the network, because a bad guy can do it too, right? Bad guys get a vote, just like Mark Weatherford said. So you have to physically be there, and that really limits the vulnerability and the risk. But each one of these, I'm not going to read them all, but they all have to have different softwares, right? So you do this at your own company, and make sure that your incident response plan has a reference to this. Make sure your Go laptop for incident response has all the right tools, the Go bag has the right cables, and has the right software. So here's another example. Like, you can look at the lights on a PLC. Green is good, red is bad. Yellow, don't know. It'll tell you a lot of these things. One of these things here, this is a really tiny version, but it has the program mode, the stop mode, and the run mode. PLCs, when you get done making a change, you have to put it in run mode, and then no changes can literally be made. In the Triton incident response, they were all set to program mode. It means an attacker could go and change the ladder logic, and that's what they were doing. They were uploading new firmware, or new binaries, new binaries to those PLCs. You can look in the ladder logic. This is the PC Works for this Phoenix Contact PLC, And there's a lot of cool things that you can learn about looking in this. There's a config compare tool in there. You can take one ladder logic and maybe the existing one that's running on the machine now and take your last known good configuration and do a comparison to see if they match forensically or digitally. There's one of those, you can't just go buy these cables. You usually have to buy them from the manufacturer. Here's another example of the config compare tool. One that says, this is from a D20 substation RTU, and one of them has the password admin and change me, and then the changed one says backup, admin, change me, you have been pwned. So it detected the difference there. We actually went into the PLC and changed these parameters and then ran the config compare, and you could see the difference. Oh, can you go back one slide? Sorry. Hello? Can you go back one slide for me? Yeah, thank you. If you want to contribute to OT DFIR, Dan, talk to me. We have Dan from Insane Forensics. He set up a website, otdfir.org. We're trying to collect some of these embedded systems, these embedded tools, these embedded IR plans, things like that, and putting them on this community-based, community-driven website, so OTDFIR. Have a plan, test it, and improvement. So incident response programs, really important to have for IT. Tie that to OT as well. So you're unified in your response. Plans and playbooks. If you don't have a plan, that's bad. You don't want to wave your hands around saying, oops, what do we do? So you need to build OT playbooks for your, like if there's malware in your OT environment, if the passwords are stolen, what do you do? Well, some of these systems you can't change the passwords on them because they're hard-coded. And then lastly, we talk about tabletop exercises. Practicing what we preach. Like at the power company, we did hurricane tabletops every year. We got better and better at doing actual hurricane response. I know some of the oil and gas folks are shaking their head because they have to do the same thing, plan and prepare. Do the same thing for cyber incidents on your OT system, and then that will help you continuously improve. If you don't have that IR plan, let's see if it works. Yeah, you don't want to be like Beetlejuice and be like, huh? Who, me? Just hanging around. No, we have to have a plan. We don't want to be caught not knowing what to do. And if you can prepare in advance at least something, who's your incident commander when this happens? Who's the lead cyber person at your facility that's for OT? Or maybe it may be the lead electrician on a rig. It may be the lead SCADA person at a power company for that substation. Having a list is going to be important. And then you'll eventually figure it out, but writing this plan down is really good. So these are the 4 playbooks that I always recommend. It is football season. You can see this playbook from Sean Payton. It's ridiculous. Your playbooks are designed to show your strengths against the adversary's weaknesses. And the adversary could be somebody's new hire that made a mistake at 5 o'clock on Friday, right? They made a change. Oh, we have a backup procedure. Let's fix it and not cause an impact. But for malicious ones, we talk about commodity malware and OT, Config, Remnant, Mariposa, WannaCry, all of these things. These are still happening on a daily basis, and they're not being talked about in the news because it's not that big a deal, to be honest. But it is big enough deal if it shuts down your network in the control system environment. So you need to have a process to deal with it, to invalidate when it's clean, restoring Passwords, having a paper backup system, that's really important. OT credential compromise. With the Ukraine attack in 2015, the attackers were moving the mouse of the operator. You can go look at it on YouTube. Someone took a video of it, and they would cancel that account. Well, they stole all the operator accounts, so they just log in with another one. They were playing whack-a-mole. They should have just cut the VPN and then dealt with securing their network, but they didn't have that credential compromise playbook. Also, that they did that in Aurora at INL, PLC ladder logic change. So if those credentials are compromised, what do you do in an OT environment? Destructive attack, ransomware, kill disk, wiper malware, NotPetya. What do you do when something is fast, ripping your network apart or making it unusable? You may have to have a red button script that's ready to go to enable severing your network. So dormant firewall rules between your IT and OT that can be activated with a script that's protected, because if the attacker finds that, they'll do that too, right? So have a really protected way to quickly sever your network. Otherwise, you're going to be yanking cables. And yanking cables is okay. Or turning off a switch, whatever you need to do. And then the last one is an ICS protocol. If you see Stuxnet and Destroyer and from 1 and 2, Triton, if you see strange ICS traffic happening, what do you do about that? So have a plan and playbook around that. I like to talk about ICS for ICS. I just got my Type 4 Incident Command certification. But what this follows is the FEMA National Incident Command structure, National Incident Command System that's used for pandemics, fires, national disasters, local disasters, like if someone hits a power pole, the local police, fire, EMS, and the power companies are all going to use that incident command system to respond to it, blocking off traffic, calling in the response. It's really well done since the 70s, and it has a unique language that's common across everybody. They're not using 10 codes like 10-4 good buddy, 10-20, 10-25, whatever that means. Like, no, we're going to use the same language across the and it's also scalable. So you can have an incident that's just local, like someone getting pulled over. That you're using incident command to manage that. There's only one person that's doing the response. But that still system that will scale up to a national disaster like a hurricane. So you can go to icsforics.org. Now we've got over 1,000 global members signed up for the email list. And it's not just the United States, right? You have these different chain of command here, and that's really important. Where your incident command, you may have an operations section chief. That's the tactical. If you saw Don's talk the other day, it's the tactical response. The incident commander is strategic. The operations section chief is going to be tactical. The planning section chief is going to come up with the incident response plan. The logistics section chief is going to help get the resources in and out. Like you see this with staging areas, right? And then the finance section chief has to pay for it all. So we have over 20 ICS for ICS credential Type 4 incident commanders. This just makes sense. This is a really good program, and I hope that if you are familiar with it, get involved with this with cyber security. It's just adding cyber to this command structure. Another playbook that's out there is from American Public Power Association and can show as an incident gets more severe. This is using the incident command structure. Local can be respond with local. If we expand to a level 2 event, we're going to have to get more people in the company involved and have more expansion. We get to a level 3, now we've got state and local resources that's going to have to be brought in. City, state emergency managers, state and local officials, the board of directors, insurance, local law enforcement, EISAC, MSISAC, Water ISAC, cyber mutual assistance. If we get to a level 4 or 5, we're getting up to the mayor, governor, National Guard, FBI, the president, and that's the kind of planning you can do. This is free out there. This is like a fantastic document. And I'll put a link to this in my at the end. Training and awareness is so important. Cyber culture needs to be like safety culture in OT. It's really something that it was ingrained in me when I started at the power company. Safety rules are written in blood. And how do we translate that into cyber culture, right? So we take those lessons from the safety culture and have a safety moment before each meeting. We can have a cyber moment at the beginning of each meeting. Don't click on stuff. Be a jerk at work. Make sure that they show their badge. Being a jerk to get past this guy, the red team, he's going to get in your stuff, and no one asks questions. We had another guy walked into a power plant, walked under the gate, and the security guard said, "Stop," and he said, "No," and kept walking, and no one stopped him. So be a jerk at work about cybersecurity and physical security, right? Be a polite, professional jerk. That's what I'm trying to say. Where's your badge? Why are you here? And if you verify that, then you can be going back to being nice. But closing the skills gap, bringing the team together, getting the new folks trained, being a mentor. That's real important. So we got some story time. Let's see. Recent IR examples that I've done, or my team has done. Infected manufacturing line HMIs. This happens a lot. A couple months ago, we had WannaCry. It was a bottling line. The whole line was shut down, and Nozomi sensor was installed there. That's what alerted to it. And they called us in. They had a retainer with us, and so we went in. Didn't have to go on site. This is all remote. And we talked to them, and they said, well, give us all the logs so we can kind of get an idea where it was. Long story short, it was a engineering workstation that belonged to a third party who manages their contractor that manages the control system for that bottling line and that manufacturing plant. And it was not connected to the network, but someone put in a hotspot, connected to the internet, connected with tight VNC. That's as far as the logs led us, and it downloaded an update, and then it also downloaded WannaCry. And it sat there for a year and a half, and then when they went to go ahead and reconfigure the PLCs, boom, that's when they connected it to the network. It spread to all the other systems that were vulnerable. They all had Windows 7 with no antivirus. And so, that one was a near miss for them because it was a broken version of WannaCry. It didn't encrypt anything. But still, there was a lot of finger pointing, like a lot of talks were probably had when we were off the conference bridge on why did you connect it this way? Why didn't it have antivirus? Why? We're like, it doesn't matter. We just want to show you the facts here. Another one was a brewery had multiple commodity malware. The lines were still operating. So it didn't take anything down, but it was still causing a lot of unnecessary traffic on the network. And we found out it was just an infected USB someone brought in years and years ago. It had just been sitting there, just creating dumb traffic. We leveraged the Nozomi that they had, and we're like, oh, this is where all the malware's coming from. We go to these HMIs, cleaned them, then we went back to the Nozomi, verified the traffic had stopped. All of the C2 traffic was being blocked by the firewall. And here's a secret. Nozomi, none of them will detect an alert on it if it hasn't made a successful connection. If it's blocked by the firewall, it's not going to alert on it. So when you're looking in the sensors, go to the DNS list, look for all the weird DNS logs. 9 times out of 10, that's my first place I'm going to look. an infected ICS engineering laptop. It was so old at this, it was a pharmacy facility that had it was an automated warehouse. The engineering laptop to change the conveyor belts and all the vision systems, it was so old. We were trying to pull the memory off of it. The power supply died while we were on site. I think it was a Windows XP laptop with like a parallel port on the back. They really got their money's worth out of that one, but it died while we were doing the analysis. And the IT team rejoiced because they go, we're going to give you a gold image, brand new corporate laptop, and you can put all your software back on it. And they complained, they said, well, we got Windows XP. Use XP mode, it'll be fine. You'll put it in there. And then an infected contractor laptop. This has happened so many times, I can't even tell you how many times it's happened. So here's an example. This is a real screenshot from the incident. It was obviously a control system. The vendor came in. They had bought a brand new laptop from Best Buy. Didn't even turn on the antivirus. They downloaded all their software to do the updates, connected it to a Wi-Fi hotspot to download all the new updates, connected it to the control system, and then left it to do the updates overnight. The next day they came back, all these windows pops up, and it was a skid, a script kiddie. You can see it says open public IP address, Tom, invalid command, he, invalid command, binary, not connected, get v.exe, not connected, quit. Someone doesn't know what they're doing. They found it exposed on the internet. It was a near miss too because the person that was doing this didn't know it was a control system environment or didn't care. They were just finding publicly accessible systems, right? So we were able to clean the malware, and afterwards we worked with them to have a third-party vendor laptop like check sheet checklist. Before you connect anything, do this. Oh, and don't allow split tunneling or don't allow connecting to two networks at the same time. Get your updates, do scans and whatnot, and then you can connect to only the network you need to connect to. You can't do both at the same time. I'm going to skip this to the end. If you don't remember anything I told you, too long didn't read. Donuts. Take donuts. If you're in IT or IT security, take donuts to the operators, engineers, and be nice, respect them. You're going to learn a lot. You're going to learn a whole lot. Engineers are smart. You're going to, tacos? Oh, kolaches. Kolaches. In Houston, it's kolaches or nothing, Get together, share the stories, because there's so many times where I've gone into a place where the IT team had never even spoken to the OT team, even though they worked in the same building. I felt like I was a marriage counselor, not a consultant. Like, let's talk, let's get together. So donuts, and this is something I've been preaching ever since I was an engineer at the power company. Collaborate, plan, and practice. You have to collaborate. You absolutely have to. Identify those key people with the knowledge of the IT stuff, the security stuff, and the OT stuff. Put that in a book somewhere, even a napkin. Come on, start somewhere. And then include IT, your IR plan for IT, include OT into it, and your engineering and your safety, your key contacts. Maybe your call out to your business continuity plan or your disaster recovery plan that they already follow already. And then create and maintain inventories that are machine readable of your assets. That'll help you when the heat is on and you've got to figure out what's going on everywhere. Practice, develop awareness training, make it a safety culture-like thing. So make it a security culture. And then do the TTXs, including see how long it takes to collect logs. Because the plant manager is going to go, how long is it going to take to do all the log collection? Every IR that I did, that was asked. The plant manager was asking, how long is it going to take? Oh, we're going to be back tomorrow. once they go around to all 30 workstations at the power plant. Be proactive. You can do fill in the blank. You can do it. You can do OTIR. You can do OT asset inventory. You can do all of it. Got some resources. I'll let you take a picture of that. I'll post this too. This is the SB 800 series, 61R2, 82R3. Has a section on response. CISA has some stuff. The public playbook, public power playbook, CISA, JCDC. If you're in energy and water, those plans are coming soon, coming by the end of the year. I'm working on that with the JCDC folks. We got some blogs on Mandiant, ICS for ICS, OTDFIR.